Tonight, we discuss joy, or more specifically, finding joy, embracing joy in the life we currently have. We've probably all seen situations where we don't have the strength for this, but guess what? The situation demands it. So lo and behold, like it or not, we do have the strength. We should have our strength, and we should use our strength for good, happy things. That's what we want, to have the strength and use it for happy things, for positive things, for joyous things. So last week we spoke about joy. We're going to continue and conclude today. And hopefully from these ideas, again, the idea is to apply them. The idea is to think about them. And of course, everyone individualizes these concepts for their own reality, but hopefully you'll all find something here that actually resonates what you are going through and your world. And our bottom line from last week was to be in a state of joy. That was the bottom line. It was a very simple bottom line. Everything's coming from God. God is good. So all that happens is, in essence, good. Sometimes it's openly perceived as good. Sometimes it's disguised, and you can't see it immediately. But still, in essence, all is God, all is good. That was what we discussed and concluded last week. What I wanted to continue today was the question, sort of that great existential question, but why does God do it this way? It's only him, and he's only good, and it's all good. So why does he take this beautiful good and hide it in such ucky wrapping paper? Why does he take this beautiful good and put it in things that look so not? So there's a story with the Maggid of Mezrich. The Maggid of Mezrich was the successor to the Baal Shem Tov. If you've heard of the Baal Shem Tov, I'm sure many of you have. He was the founder of the Hasidic movement, and his successor, disciple, was referred to as the Maggid of Mezrich. So once the Maggid of Mezrich saw that his child was crying, and he asked his son, "Why were you crying?" And his son said, "Well, we were playing hide and seek, and I was hiding, and nobody found me. And then they stopped looking for me. And then they all went away and playing a different game, and they left me. And that's why I'm hiding." I actually have a memory as a child where we were playing hide and seek, and I hid so well that nobody found me. It's cool in the beginning, and then it gets really boring. Because you don't come out of your hiding place, but like nobody's finding you. They're all having a fun time. You're stuck hiding. So the Maggid said, you know what? God has the same complaint. The verse says, you are a God who hides. God hides. God hides for a reason, just like we play hide and seek. God hides so people should find him. But sometimes we stop looking. We get busy with other things. So it's true that all of these universal experiences, children's games throughout the world, they're all really mirroring a very deep energy. And that universal, forever, for all generations, children's game is because that's the dynamics of God in us. God hides to be found. And we have to keep searching. And when we stop searching and we go play another game, that's the tragedy. So when we in our lives are experiencing something that we process as negative, bad, painful, it could really break us. And sometimes what's breaking us isn't the thing itself, but forgetting that in this thing is God hiding, and the purpose of the negative is to motivate us to find him. So if that happens, you don't feel broken. You might feel challenged. You might feel like, oh, good, I want to see what's going on. I have actually something going on in my life now where I'm like, I want to see. I know it's all God. I know it's all good. I'm curious. I'm a little excited to see what's going to be the good. I don't know, but I know it's all God. I know it's all good. So when we think like that, okay, this is a challenge. This is cool. This is God. This is good. Sure doesn't look like it. Can't wait to see how this one's going to pan out. It'll probably be a great story. We're saying, God, we know you're here. And we know you're hiding, and we're not fooled. And through our joy and our positivity and our confidence and our trust, we're finding you. And you're coming out of your hiding space. If we think of the binding of Isaac, Akedas Yitzchak, that was a pretty extreme example of this. God sets up a setup, a deliberate setup. What do I mean was a deliberate setup? He deliberately told Abraham something, knowing that Abraham would misunderstand, because of course God said it in a way that it should be misunderstood. And that was the point. Like Rashi, the most classical commentator, explains, God said, I didn't change, but you didn't understand. You thought I meant for you to slaughter your son. God forbid, I would never want something like that. I only told you, bring him up. That's all I ever wanted. You brought him up, bring him down. Child sacrifice? No, of course not. God forbid. So why did Abraham think that? Because God said it in a way that he should think that. Why? Because only when you don't understand can you walk a walk that otherwise is impossible. That would be impossible if you understood. That's the point. For Abraham to walk that otherwise impossible walk. Meaning God wanted and pushed Abraham to beyond the max of his devotion to God, his giving all over to God, his unquestioning stance, even though it made no sense on every single level possible. Put it all aside. Just complete nullification to the will of God. If Abraham understood, if Abraham knew, God didn't say slaughter him, God said bring him up. He wants you to bring him up and he's going to bring him down. Oh, okay. So the whole thing fell apart. So we do not have the possibility to be squeezed in the way Abraham was and to become the person Abraham came as a process. Through this experience, what was produced, what was achieved is only possible because of this experience. And that's true for each one of us as well. In other words, we also, not hopefully to such extreme degrees, not hopefully as grandiose as that, but in our own lives, we also go through our own version of the Akedah, of the binding of Isaac. We also go through situations where it looks horrible. It looks like it makes no sense. It looks so bad. And it's really not. It's a setup. It's a setup to create an opportunity for us to make choices, for us to grow, for us to believe in God despite everything, for us to believe even when it makes no sense. And all of that is why God gives us what he throws at us, as he gave Abraham what he gave Abraham. We're not Abraham. We don't have his challenges. But on our level, we have our challenges, which are akin to his challenges for the exact same purpose. And sometimes, again, it's just obscuring. It's just clouds. It breaks away. It was really nothing. Why do we have to go through that? To grow in the way we can only grow by those experiences, just like by Abraham. So that's God hiding for us to find him. That's the point. If you think of a father, the father is hiding to develop the intelligence of the child. So the intelligent child searches for his father and becomes more intelligent by this process. And the foolish child cries, looks a little, gets confused, gets discouraged, stops looking. The mature child says, this is a game. Father wouldn't abandon me. He's hiding so I can find him. He wouldn't want to stay away from me. He wants to be found, but he wants me to find him. This is the vision. This is how we have to envision our relationship with God. God would never abandon us. God would never leave us. God would never create a horrible situation and walk away and get busy with something else. God is creating a test, a situation where it looks like he's not there, so I look for him. Now, obviously, in the storyline, we understand what it means to look for God. We can envision that quite well. What does it mean in our life? What does it mean to look for God, look for him and find him in his hiding place when the situation seems bad and we don't seem to see him in the situation? We find God by three ways. We find God by trust. We find God by being joyous. And we find God by adding in our service. So again, in the story, you don't see your father. Where is he? I don't know. He left us. He left us. Father would never leave us. We're going to find him. Search, 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 every place, wherever you know. Father usually goes where you and Father are found together. And you find him because you have such love for your Father, and that evokes your Father's love for you, and he has to come out of his hiding place. And what expresses your love is that you keep searching, 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 because you love your Father and you know he didn't leave you. And your love pulls out your Father's love and he comes out. Because the whole point was for that process, for that love to be expressed. And that's exactly what happens with us and God. That's exactly what happens with us and God. Where is God? This happened in my life. Where is God? You know, it's what Miriam was saying about her mother and the running away and the train and the bombing and why is this happening? And the woman says, why, God, did you leave me and take my children? So many things we've experienced in our history, not so far history, parents, grandparents, and nowadays in a different way, though sometimes in a similar way, but in our own situations, it could be just as painful. Might not sound as dramatic, but we could also go through a lot of pain, a lot of psychological pain. And a lot of psychological pain comes from feeling, God, where are you? Why did you abandon me? Why am I all alone? What happened? And the point is to say, God would never abandon us. God is here. God is with us. He's hiding to give you the opportunity to find him. As we said, by your trust, by your joy, by your adding in your service. Does anyone experience something like this in their life when they went through something hard and instead of being normal and getting discouraged and getting depressed, they kept looking for God? They were determined to find him in the situation.
I was told when I went through my hard times that God gives you only as much as you can handle.
True.
So this phrase stick to my mind, and I just hoped I get through this. I'll get somehow, because nothing is more that I can handle. And it's interesting that things happened like I don't know, people from nowhere. I would receive some simple help of care, like somebody would. I don't know. I just don't want to give all examples. It was too much. But just believe me, there was so many examples in a period of few months where I needed support from God. I didn't have support, but there were messengers who would bring me something. Either it was conversation, either it was, I don't know, a cup of coffee. Somebody gave me gift card. I did not need it. But it was just a token of something that it's almost like I felt God sends people to help me, even though they could not, I don't know, take half of my pain and problems. But those little tokens were giving me hope that there is God. Otherwise, who else would send this from nowhere? People to give me this little hope of someday will be a day.
That's
Tomorrow
beautiful.
will be
That's
a day.
beautiful that you understood it that way, and you're absolutely correct. Yes, there is an axiom. God only gives you what you can handle. God knows how much we can handle. We often think he must have misevaluated, but God actually does not misevaluate. God actually knows far better than us our strengths. We are probably all far stronger than we realize, and we can handle far more than we realize. But yes, as God is putting us sometimes in very stretching, challenging situations, he does send one way or another messengers, like you're saying, people that are expressing his love, or different things. People process different things in the world as like a sign of God, a messenger from God, a sign of hope, a feeling of God's warmth, God's smile, God's wink, God's hug, God's embrace. And yes, with those messages, we keep going.
And the
Anyone
more
else?
the more you get, the more you have trust.
Sure, absolutely, because you know it. He's here. He's with me. Anyone else? Does anyone else in a hard time? Of course, we've all gone through hard times, but in a hard time said, basically, I'm not going to give up. I'm not giving up on God. I know he's here, and I'm going to find him. And kept pushing. I'm sure people have. Sometimes it's hard to articulate, and sometimes the details are private. But keep it in mind, because of course we all go through challenges. And again, they don't have to be ultra dramatic. Life has plenty of boring, mundane challenges as well. But in every situation, big situations and the little situations, God, you're involved in every detail. No, that just happened. No. Yeah, your phone gets water damage, and then you can't access your contacts, and then you can't reach and then you spend hours dealing with it. That's just life. There's nothing random. Every single detail is deliberate design. Every single detail, big ones and little ones, are there to help us grow and remember God and turn to Him and be better people through this process. So that is the general perspective, if you will. So just as in the metaphor, when the child, the wise child, the mature child says, "No way, Daddy didn't leave us. Father wouldn't abandon us. No, he's not here. I'm going playing on the slides. You want to come join? No, he's here. We're going to find him. No, I'm playing on the slides. I'm getting a drink of water. I'm going inside. It's too hot. It's too cold. Well, I'm finding Father." And that consists in looking and looking and looking for the Father, which expresses how much love the child has for his father, draws the father out of the hiding place. And when that happens, the father doesn't go and hide himself again. Mission accomplished. God is hiding for us to find him. When we trust, when we are in joy, when we add in our service, we found him. What do you mean by we found him? We're saying, this is you, God. I'm not fooled. There's nothing but you. This is not an accident. This is not random. This is not bad luck. This is God hiding. And I found you. And then God says, okay. Then there's no need to hide anymore. The purpose of hiding was accomplished. So it's a really powerful vision for so much in our life. Because, as I said, in big ways and little ways, we all live through this. So it's a very powerful vision to whatever little or big thing you're going through, just plug it into this paradigm. It's hiding so I can find him. God's hiding to give me an opportunity to love him anyway, to not give up on him, to trust him, to believe in him, to have joy in my life because I know he's in my life, even though I don't see a thing. And living that way pulls God out of the hiding place, because that was the purpose of it all along. So why does God do this? The Father is doing this, we said, to develop the mind of the Son, to develop the Son's love for him, to give the Son an opportunity to demonstrate his love for him. Why is God doing this? And especially because when we're talking sometimes about situations that are really even harming our ability to serve God. If everything's God, true, and it's only for our good, true, why would God create situations that seemingly are lessening my ability to serve him? It's a great question. And for all those great questions, we have the same answer. It's all from God. Nothing happens that's not from God. Since we know that is true, that is the principle, that is the foundation of how we look at everything in this world, even something that seems undesirable spiritually has to be disguised good. That's our only option. We don't have an option that's not from God and therefore good. And if I don't see it as good, disguised good. That's my whole gamut of choice here. So why is this thing happening? It's from God and it's for good. This doesn't look good. It's from God and it's for good. This thing looks bad spiritually. Well, guess what? It's still from God and it's still for good. Sometimes we could wonder, why would God test someone who's close to him? Meaning, you test someone who's spacing out on you. You test someone because you want to remind him of your existence. Okay, that makes sense. But someone who's spaced in, someone who serves God, someone who remembers God, someone who prays to God, who gives charity, who studies, that person need a test. Why would such a person need a test? I mean, you could go back to Abraham. Abraham needs a test. Abraham devoted his whole life to God. Someone like Abraham doesn't need a test. So when we're talking about a test, the word to test The word in Hebrew to test is linasot, a nisayon. The word to test has another meaning in Hebrew. It also means to elevate, to raise up. A nes, which means a test, also means a flag, a banner, something raised up on the flagpole. So this concept of the test, of the challenge, of God hiding himself for us to find him is nisayon, linasot, to test us, to raise us, to enable us to reach very high levels. Now, what I mean by this is as follows. And again, this is sort of very basic understanding. Simply speaking, we could say that every one of us operates simultaneously on two levels. We have our revealed on the surface, what I see and what the world sees level, the level I generally operate on, the powers I generally have. And then we have those hidden inner level powers that are not on the surface and I don't usually use. Right? Miriam was just talking about her mother and saying the strength and how did they have that strength and where does it come from? We all have inside of ourselves tremendous reservoirs of power, enormous power that we don't use, that we don't think we have. Okay, no, I can't survive without a certain amount of sleep. I can't do that amount of physical exertion. I don't have that stamina. I know myself. I mean, I wish I did. I wish I could. I just can't. That's true on our surface level. But inside that surface level, there's a deeper level of self that has so much power. And that doesn't usually come out and isn't usually accessed. Just like we know on a very physical level. As I said, we all have limits what we physically can do. But in times of extreme danger, people can do way beyond the limits of human strength. We all know the stories of the mother that picks up the car to save her child. Or the Rabbi Yatz tells there was a fire and people squeezed themselves into tiny, tiny places to escape the fire and smoke. And they did. And the places were so small that after the fire, they couldn't get out. They were stuck. They had to break down around them the walls to free them. So how did they get in there if they couldn't get out of there? Because in a time of great danger, you have this strength and you can shrink yourself in a way that really you can't. In a time of great danger, we really have a physical strength that can be demonstrated. You don't have to believe in it. We've seen it. And picked up things, lifted things, carried things, endurance that makes no sense. But we have that inner ability. Emotions, on the level of emotions. Again, a parent loves a child. But if the child's in danger, there's such an overwhelming love you feel. It always existed. The love was always inside of you. This danger didn't create that emotion. It just is buried. It's not what you normally access. The same with intellect. When you're challenged, you can go deeper in understanding a concept than you ever normally could. So it's all true, and it's all in the physical world. Strength, it's true. Emotion, it's true. Intellect, it's true. All three examples are saying the exact same point, and it's a physically demonstratable point. Normally, on the surface, we have a much more superficial dimension of self. And when we have an extreme challenge, the deeper dimension surfaces. And that, in essence, is the experience of the challenge. Through the experience of the challenge, we are able to access that inner reservoir that we otherwise would be completely oblivious of, completely not feel we have. I'm not going to say deny it. You don't even know about it. To deny it, you have to know about it. You don't even know about it, and you definitely don't believe it. And when you are going through this challenge, to come out of the challenge whole, to survive the challenge, to pass the challenge, to access that deeper dimension. And what happens after the challenge has passed, because as we're saying, when you find God, God finds you, you find him, you trusted, you believed, you were joyous, you added, you passed. He comes out of his hiding place. Challenge is over. Whatever the situation was is solved. How is it solved? God is very creative. He has myriads of ways of solving all of our issues. And then he doesn't go hiding again. And now you're a changed person because now you're aware of your strength. Of course, sometimes you could be aware of your strength and then after the challenge, sort of like let it fade. But most of the time, as we access those strengths, we start using them. And they become part of how we live as regular people with a deeper, stronger commitment to God, a deeper, stronger sense of self as a person, sense of self as a godly person, sensitivity to other people, love for other people. We're different. And we want to keep those differences because that was the reason for that whole journey. Who here has experienced this? Who here has seen themselves growing through this process? We all have. But who can think of a time or a situation where they really saw it was really challenging and they became different? They changed. I know I've shared before this saying of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's just a saying that resonates with me. And I think of in these types of situations where the Rebbe Rayatz said that before his final arrest and imprisonment in Tsarist Russia, if he could have paid all the money in the world to save himself from any of that suffering, he would have paid all the money in the world. But now, afterwards, if someone would give him all the money in the world to buy off some of those moments that he suffered, he wouldn't sell not one, not for all the money in the world. And I think that to me just embodies this concept so strongly. The fact that he would spend all the money in the world to avoid the suffering, we understand. But afterwards, what is he saying? If you give me all the money in the world, I've got a lot of good things I could do with that money. There's a lot of Jews all over the world that need that money. There's a lot of Jews in Russia that need that money. Like, I got good use for that money, but nothing doing. I'm not selling one moment. Why not? Because look what I accomplished. Look how I grew. Look how I changed. I can't give that up. Now we're talking about a Rebbe. We're talking about someone who was already leading the Jewish people for years. We're talking about a perfect tzaddik, someone who has completely eradicated any evil. And still, he said, he wouldn't give up one moment. So I can definitely say for myself, as a very human being, don't have to be a perfect tzaddik, Rebbe, leader of the Jewish people. I can see for myself that, yeah, all the things I've gone through that have been challenging have definitely changed me and made me a very different person than I otherwise would be today. Would I say, looking back, I'm so glad I went through them? No, not at all. Not at all. Not one drop. But would I say that since it already happened, and it did happen, I wouldn't give it up? Once I already went through it, I'm not going to give up the accomplishments? Of course not. That's the journey of my soul. That's what I needed to go through to become what I needed to become. And that's true for every single one of us. For every single one of us, because no one is exempt. Some people, again, have more dramatic examples. Some people have more public and overt examples. But everyone goes through this. There's only one question. Are you going to be the child that runs to the playground? Are you going to be the child that keeps looking for your father? Are you going to be the child that gets distracted, that gets depressed, that gives up? Are you going to be the child that keeps looking because you know Father would never abandon you, and you keep looking and you keep looking and you find your Father? Rachel?
Yeah, just what you said, it's exactly what we who came from the Soviet Union probably can witness, because in the past, when we were not aware of God's existence, we had our own difficulties, but it didn't teach us that much. But in the new life, having the awareness of God, it changes you. Every challenge changes you. You learn lessons. It's like completely different experience, because exactly what you said.
That's such an amazing perspective, because you're saying roughly in your own life, you could compare before and after. Before, when you're in Russia and unfortunately don't even know to keep looking, to keep believing, and you're still going through hard stuff, but you don't really gain or grow so much from it. A little bit, you're saying, but you can't really maximize the opportunity. And then when you came to Italy, to America, when you started being aware of God, you could process this and grow from it. And as we are challenged and grow and process and believe and stay trusting and stay joyous and add in our service, we become such different people. Such different people. You know, just like Miriam was talking before about her mom and her mother's incredible devotion to her younger sister from age 15 for the rest of her life. Now imagine, of course, we're talking about a woman I don't know. Most of us don't know here besides Miriam. But just taking that as an example, imagine what Miriam's mother's life would have been like without that handicapped sister in her. And imagine it as it was, based on what Miriam told us. As Miriam's talking about her mother's sensitivity and her mother always carrying her medicines around and her mother always being there for the other person. And did that by some means perhaps mildly connect to the fact that she spent her whole life taking care of her sister? Like, you know, a little bit. So as we go through what we go through in life, there's a reason. And it changes us. Now, again, we never lose our free choice. You could be in that situation and become bitter and become mad and sulk and be depressed and say, why me? Why me? Why are you picking on me, God? Why are you burdening me? You know, life in communist Russia was hard enough in one apartment, also a room where we've been putting her, and then my whole life since I'm 15. Or you grow and become a far better person than you would ever have been otherwise. And that's true, again, perhaps not as dramatically, but we all have the big and we all have the little. And each time we always have that choice. Am I going to look at this as an opportunity to find God? Am I going to go play in the playground, in the candy store, dig a hole in the sand and put my head in, be depressed, be mad? Or am I going to say, God, this isn't my vision of my life. This isn't what I scripted I wanted my life to look at. But I'm embracing your vision. How do I know this is your vision? Because this is the life you're giving me. The life you're giving me, this is your vision of the life you want me to lead. So I'm going to accept your vision instead of mine. I'm going to embrace your vision instead of mine. And how do I show you that I'm embracing your vision? A person can say, well, you have no choice, right? Well, you have this sister and somebody needs to take care of her. So to speak, you have no choice. Because I'm going to do it with joy. Do it with joy. I'm showing God and showing myself. God, this is the life you want me to lead. Fact, this is the life you're giving me. This is the life you want me to lead. I did not think in my life I would be challenged with issues between myself and my husband. I did not think in my life I'd be challenged with health concerns. I did not think in my life I would be widowed or have a special needs child or struggle with my neighbors. Or But God, this is the life you're giving me. This is the life you want me to lead. And I'm accepting it that way. I'm embracing it. I'm going to walk that road with joy because I know you are choosing what's really for me, my better life. Sitting, as we are sitting in front of our Zoom cameras, and this class still has the best score for seeing faces. So even though today it wasn't 100%, you're still far better than any other class I teach. So, full points. It's easy to say, so to speak. It's easier to say. And obviously when we're walking the walk and living that and living the specific challenges that each one of us is challenged with, and to say, God knows what he's doing. This is what my soul needs. This is why my soul came to this world. Maybe in all my previous lifetimes, I never refined this point. Maybe now I'm challenged between myself and my husband because maybe I've been in this lifetime 10 times before and I never managed to do it right. So God said, you're coming back because it's time you got to do it right. And maybe I'm challenged with a very difficult child because I need to access a certain humility I never had, or a certain vulnerability I never had, or a certain care and devotion to someone else that I never had. Whatever the challenge is, it's never a mistake. It's never God spacing out on us, abandoning us, leaving us to life, to fate, to nature. Every single situation we're in is God deliberately choosing and manufacturing, forming, maybe put a lot of, so to speak, time into getting all the pieces to line up to have exactly that situation, because that's what we need. And then again, we have the choice to embrace it, to trust, to have joy, to give more, or to say, I can't be bothered looking for God. I'm too drained. I'm going to distract myself with other distractions because it's too hard to be focused and keep looking for God. But when you keep reminding yourself, this is all God, this is all good, this is for a purpose, the purpose is for me, this is my road, this is my growth, this is why I'm in this world, to embrace the life God is giving me, to walk it with joy. This is how we really achieve why we're here. And when we think about it that way, we can really reframe our challenges into our opportunities. Really, really opportunities. So my blessing to you as we end the class is that we don't need to have so many opportunities, that God gives us good, revealed good, obvious good, brain not needed to process good, from his bountiful, good, kind, compassionate hand. And we accept that with joy as well. Know it's him, appreciate it, and easily, stress-free, challenge-free, live a very, very, very happy, joyous life, which is how God wants his only child, us, to live.